Nothing will change the fact that Abrego Garcia will never be a Maryland father. He will never live in the United States of America again.
Mr. President Bukele, we thank you very much for your partnership. It has been wonderful for us to be able to have somewhere to send the worst of the worst.
Do you plan to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported?
The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
President Bukele said he was not sending him back. That's the end of the story. There was no situation ever where he was going to stay in this country. But he's from El Salvador, he's in El Salvador, and that's where the president plans on keeping him.
The Democrats and the media in this room have continually and wrongly labeled Kilmar Abrego Garcia as a Maryland father. There is no Maryland father. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member, and foreign terrorist.
Will you take steps to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States and put him in front of a judge?
You'll have to speak to the lawyers, the DOJ. I've heard many things about him. We'll have to find out what the truth is. We have activist judges that don't want murderers to be sent out of our country. They don't want killers and drug dealers and drug lords and people from mental institutions. They want them to stay in our country, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's the liberal way, or as they call it nowadays, the progressive way.
Foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple.
You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens, but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens?
If it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem.
Deporting American citizens to Central American prisons. Is it legal, or do you need to change the law?
He would only consider this, if legal, for Americans who are the most violent, egregious, repeat offenders of crime who nobody in this room wants living in their communities.
The Supreme Court agreed to hear oral arguments in the case about ending birthright citizenship.
Well, you're just telling me that for the first time. I am so happy. I think the case has been so misunderstood. That case, birthright citizenship, is about slavery.
You mentioned short-lived product exemptions. Which specific products are you considering?
I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. There'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I help Tim Cook. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country. All I have to do is impose a tariff. The more, the faster they move in. The higher the tariff, the faster they come.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. Tariffs are highly likely to generate at least a temporary rise in inflation. The inflationary effects could also be more persistent.
Fed independence is very widely understood and supported in Washington, in Congress, where it really matters. But we will do what we do strictly without consideration of political or any other extraneous factors.
We have a Federal Reserve Chairman that is playing politics. If I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Can you explain the disconnect between your conversations with President Xi, when those potentially could happen and why they haven't happened yet?
Well, you don't know whether or not they've happened. I would say they have reached out a number of times.
Has he called you directly, President Xi, or reached out to try to facilitate a conversation?
Well, you'd think it was pretty obvious that he has.
You previously said that you would consider reducing tariffs on China to get a TikTok deal done.
Well, we have a deal for TikTok, but it'll be subject to China, so we'll just delay the deal till this thing works out.
Autism destroys families, and more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. This is coming from an environmental toxin, and somebody made a profit by putting that environmental toxin into our air, our water, our medicines, our food. And why are we not seeing it in older people? Why is this only happening in young people? Instead of listening to this canard of epidemic denial, all you have to do is start reading a little science.
Where does the administration see this going with Harvard and with other colleges and universities in America that are refusing to reform in wake of the sort of craziness that we've seen take over some of them.
All the president is asking, don't break federal law and then you can have your federal funding. And we certainly should not be funding a place where such grave anti-Semitism exists.
I think Harvard's a disgrace. I think what they did was a disgrace. They're obviously anti-Semitic.
Do you have a reaction to Russia's Palm Sunday attack on Ukraine?
I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake.
You repeatedly mentioned last night that Russia's attack on Ukraine was a mistake. What is the exact mistake?
The mistake was letting the war happen.
Russia wants to end this war, and the president believes that as well. There is incentive for Russia to end this war. Perhaps that could be economic partnerships with the United States, but we need to see a ceasefire first.
I don't hold Zelensky responsible, but I'm not exactly thrilled with the fact that that war started. So I'm not blaming him, but what I am saying is that I wouldn't say he's done the greatest job. Okay, I'm not a big fan. I really am. I'm not a big fan.
We're learning that there are now 2 deceased following that shooting at Florida State University. Following and amid that, is there any changes that you want to see to gun legislation? Anything you see broken with gun laws in our country?
I'm going to have to look. I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it, and these things are terrible. But the gun doesn't do the shooting, the people do.
Today, the Department of Justice is announcing a civil lawsuit against the Maine Department of Education. The state of Maine is discriminating against women by failing to protect women in women's sports. Pretty basic stuff.
I wanted to ask if there's other states that you're focused on. Which ones are next for these types of abuses?
We're looking at Minnesota. We're looking at California. We're looking at many, many states, but they are the top 2 that should be on notice. We don't want to be suing people. We want them to comply with the law.
They released my physical on Friday. The numbers were perfect. And I took a cognitive exam, and I would challenge anybody here to meet those marks because I have a perfect mark.
Well, how do you stay so healthy? How do you stay so energized?
Because I enjoy what I'm doing and I like the results. I think we're making America great again, and it makes me feel good. I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark. But I took a full physical, and it came out perfecto, so that's good. That means you've got me for a little longer.